This is Support is Sexy, episode 164, How to Get to the Other Side of Failure. Welcome to Support is Sexy. I'm your host, Elayne Fluker, entrepreneur, author, and founder of Chic Rebellion Media. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, I interview inspiring women entrepreneurs who share their wins and their lessons to help you take your business and your life to the next level and create something sexy. Here we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Support is Sexy. I'm excited to have you here. It just would not be the same without you. So we are continuing our series on failure, which we've been doing for the past few episodes. So be sure to go back to listen, starting with episode 161. But in our last episode, which was 163, we talked about how to process and ponder failure. And we did an exercise to help us learn how to do that. So be sure to go back and listen to that. But on this episode, we're going to talk about that bounce back. Do a little dip when you do it. That bounce back. How to get on the other side of failure once you've processed and pondered enough. And here I will offer some ways to do that. In addition to sharing, a little bit of my story and some of the failures that I've dealt with and how I feel like I got that bounce back. Again, you got to dip when you say the bounce back. So the first step, vow not to get stuck. Give yourself an end date on that grieving period. All right. You're going to be sad. You're going to be down. If you insist on being that way about this failure, give yourself an end date. What's the deadline for this grieving period that you have on failure? Because you do not want to get stuck. Failure can be difficult. Sometimes it can be messy to get through the emotional entanglements of it all. I acknowledge that. And as I said, I've also lived that. It can be especially disappointing when you have everything planned, or at least you thought you had everything planned. You go all in when you're creating whatever this dream is or going after your goal, and then you realize it's not working out as you plan. So in my example, such was the case for me with chicrebellion.tv, which I launched to much fanfare in September of 2012. It was fabulous. It was wonderful. It was really a great experience for me going through that process. And what I envisioned chicrebellion.tv to be was a website that was an internet TV network for women of color. And I spent much of the year producing, filming, editing, managing a team of professionals, working with superstar hosts, and spending a fortune, meaning all of my savings, on all the other production costs for four series that we launched with that fall. Here was one of my problems. In my head, I was the Bravo network, but with a much smaller budget. So at the time, I was working full time as an executive at a media company, and I took time off for the launch. So on the morning my site went live, which was actually September 11, 2012, after months and months of all-nighters, I would work until 4 o'clock in the morning, sometimes 5 o'clock in the morning, then go to work the next day. It was crazy. But when the site launched that morning, I was overjoyed, and I had taken time off from my job. I returned to work that same day, feeling happy that I was moving forward, ready to get back to work in my full-time gig. That very same day, the company announced layoffs, and myself and several others were included in that layoffs because the company was going through its own share of problems. So, as you can imagine, thinking about all of the money that I had just spent and my savings, and in my mind, I was going to get back into work and build everything back up. When this happened, I was numb. I had just spent all of my savings on the business, and now I was out of work. And the biggest problem was I failed to plan for something like this, and everything just spiraled from there. So I admit I grieved over the loss of that dream, which came to a halt because I could no longer personally self-fund the network in the way that I wanted to for months after. And I struggled to get through the hurt of people, some of them I considered friends at the time, who suddenly, and in some cases viciously, turned their backs on me. But I had to put an end date on all of it. You cannot grieve forever, even if it still hurts some. This isn't to say snap out of it, you're going to get over it on this date, but give yourself an end date to think about. After this day, I'm going to look forward how I can get to the other side of this. So for me, I didn't really have time to wallow in the failure because I had to make some money. I had many obligations to take care of. So a month later, I got a phone call about a new position at another company, a bigger company actually, for a full-time gig. It was actually more money. My plan at first wasn't to go into another position, but when this came up, it was a great opportunity. So I revamped my approach to the network and I offered syndicated deals to other content producers, and I removed those toxic relationships out of my life and my business. So I was bruised, but I bounced back. And again, you got to dip. I had the bounce back. I figured it out. So for you, be sure, again, to put an end date on that grieving period. What are you going to do to move forward after you get over whatever feelings that you're having about what happened? And as you remember in the last episode, we said you have to process and ponder when you're in that space. I didn't know that then. If I go through a failure like that again, I will know while I'm down there, figure out what went wrong. What are the lessons I learned? What am I going to do differently? So, number 2, have a new goal to shoot for, armed with the lessons on what you'll do differently. Don't let your dream languish. Lick your wounds and get back in the fight with a different plan of attack. What you tried didn't work before. Okay, we all know that. So now what? What are you going to do moving forward? So, continuing with the example of chicrebellion.tv, come 2015, I began to do a lot more personal development work. So work on myself, not just on my business, because I wanted to learn more about myself and why I'm this crazy entrepreneur who just can't give it up, even though it's hard as hell sometimes, right? I also began to become more health conscious and gave thought to what I really wanted to create in this world. What did I really want to contribute? After working for 20 years in media, which I absolutely love, I still work in media, just in a different way. I really was starting to look at not what the next position is or the next job I can get. There really wasn't another magazine or outlet that I was excited about, to be honest. I worked at all the ones that I was really passionate about, with the exception of the Oprah magazine. I have not worked there yet. So with the exception of that, I really was ready to move on and look at what am I really trying to create in this world. Now, chicrebellion.tv is my baby, but it was no longer fulfilling me in the way that I wanted to, as far as being able to create original content at the level that I wanted to. I am passionate, if you cannot tell, about creating images that empower women, especially women of color who don't get to see themselves reflected in nuanced ways in media. So at the time, I was doing a lot of repurposed content, great content that still fit the theme of chicrebellion.tv and positive images that reflect the different experiences of women of color, but repurposing content from around the web, which a lot of sites had started to do at that time, it just did not cut it for me. It didn't feel It didn't feel authentic for me. Other sites do it. Other sites do it well. They do it with bigger teams, so they do it a lot better. For me, it didn't work for me. And I felt like my audience deserved more. So at the end of 2015, I made the very hard decision to tell my social media manager, who was working with me diligently at that time, that we were going to go in a different direction. And I used that holiday season at the end of 2015 to pause, really, to get still, to get quiet, and to think about, again, what do I really want to create in this world? So for me, it was no more repurposed content. What could I do to make an impact with what I am creating? To use one of my favorite quotes from the tennis legend Arthur Ashe, how do I, as he says, start where you are, use what you have, do what you can? Again, start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. That is one of my favorite quotes. I have it on my mirror. I try to always remember it. Thinking about going big is fantastic. Have that dream in mind, but how can you start what you are and use what you have to do what you can? And armed with the lesson I learned from the missteps that I made with chicrebellion.tv and a new mantra at this point, support is sexy, which I had taken on since my personal development work during the year, I decided to go in a new direction to find a new way to support women that did not hinge on whether or not I had, quote unquote, enough money. And on December 31st, 2015, I posted the first Support is Sexy post on social media. I didn't know what it would become. At that time, I wasn't really sure about creating a podcast. That wasn't even in my mind. But what I did know is that this was a new beginning. So, number 3, another way to get on the other side of failure. Remember what you loved about this adventure and why you dared to do it in the first place, even though you knew there was a risk of failing. What did you love about this? Why did you even go after this? You faced down your fear of failure and you did it anyway. There must be a reason why. Whether business venture or relationship, take it back to your why. Why was this important to you? Why was this important to your life? Why was this important to the world? What impact did you hope for this accomplishment to make in your lives or in the lives of others? What is your why? For me, my why has always been and will always be creating spaces for women to support women by sharing their stories. It's that simple. This is why I do this. I face the fear. I risk the failure. I keep pushing. My why is bigger than it all. So what you can't do is get stuck on what it has to look like, right? It has to look this way. Or for me, it has to be a big network and it has to have 4 shows and it has to have this and it has to have that. Your dream will evolve. You will find that, especially once you get started. And that's the beauty of getting started. You know, we have in mind what we think everything is going to look like or what we're going to be doing for the rest of our lives, or at least in the immediate time. And then it becomes some whole other thing. But still, at the core, you want to know what your why is. Sometimes that other thing failed because this next thing is going to take your vision in ways you can't even imagine. Have you ever had that happen? Maybe some of you haven't yet if you're just starting out. But sometimes, I will say in my case, a lot of times, whatever I was working on failed because something else, because I kept going. Now, if you don't keep going, then you're just a failure. You just stop and that was it. But if you keep going, the next thing that you can't even see coming is likely going to be even better because you're sticking with your why. If that why still resonates with you, hold on tight as you go through those failures and do not let it go. And armed with the discipline of a hard stop end date and the grieving period and getting over that period, and then with the excitement of your new goal of what you're going after or going after again, which still makes it something new because you have new information now that you're going to put to the test, plus the motivation of getting back to your why and why this matters to you and to your business and to your family and to the world, you are ready to come out on the other side of that failure, perhaps with a few new scars, but with a whole new swag. You know why? Because you got your bounce back. So take some time to consider your why. Think about all this. Thank you for listening to my story. I think this might be the first time I've fully shared it. So thank you so much for listening and for always being here. I truly appreciate you. Give this some thought. Let me know what you think. Contact me on social media at Elayne Fluker or at Support is Sexy. You can email me if it's something a little bit longer, Elayne at elaynefluker.com. And let me say, I just really appreciate the emails and you all sharing your journey with me. I offer any assistance that I can if I'm able. Sometimes it's just keep going, which is all I can offer. But I really appreciate hearing from you. So thank you for that. You can come out on the other side of failure. Just give yourself some things that you put in place because failure is going to happen because you know why? You are trying something new. You are living bigger. You are trying to make some things happen to create something sexy in this world. So there are going to be times when it just don't work out. Whether it's not meant to be or it was timing, whatever the reason, you want to arm yourself with things that help you come out on the other side of failure. So for previous episodes of the Support is Sexy podcast to get all caught up on everything, including our series on failure, go to supportissexypodcast.com. Check us out there. And until next time, you know what to do. Go out there and continue to create something sexy. And I'll talk to you soon. Take care.